disable it, Donna, so that you wouldn't be interrupted. So you won't hear any more things. Yep.
Great.
So we've got a healthy quorum now. So if you want to get moving, you can.
I think we can get moving, and I think I'm going to hand it over to Kate and to Anne to say a few words first before I get started.
Great. This is Kate Brodock. I am CEO of Women 2.0 and founding partner of the W Fund. We do the bulk of our work focused on women and underrepresented founders, primarily tech founders, but certainly broader than that in a lot of contexts. And we also work on diversity and inclusion in the general startup space, whether it's funding inside VC firms, inside workplaces, et cetera. And our fund writes out checks with the exact same mission as that. And I'm so glad to have Donna here. This and I will also let our co-host Anne from the Guild introduce herself too. I'm really glad that she is here as well with a similar mission to ourselves. Really glad we have Donna here. One of the things that we've been hearing a lot from our founders is that, especially the ones actively fundraising, is that this is a whole new world. And this idea of a lot of people are losing contacts with investors, they're losing pitch opportunities, and they've really got to rethink what they're doing. And I'm really excited. Donna is a pro at this. Really excited to have her. And this is also kicking off a series that will start in April, which is literally just straight up virtual pitch sessions. Actively raising founders will be pitching directly to investors. No competition, no feedback session, just hopefully we're gonna make you connections and get checks written out for you. So that's our main goal. So I'm gonna kick it over to Anne. Anne I met about a year ago. I had heard of her for quite a while too, so I'm really excited that she is our co-host here. Anne, do you wanna introduce yourself and the Guild?
Absolutely, thank you so much, Kate and Donna. My name is Anne Coquette. I'm the founder and CEO of the Guild. And the Guild is a global community of female entrepreneurs and innovators and leaders who work together and connect and learn together. We have an online platform for that. We also facilitate these very curated one-on-one introductions so that you can continue networking even in times like right now. We've already done this for the last 3 years and facilitated over 150,000 introductions between co-founders, founders, investors, mentors, advisors, board members, and also just friends, you know, and that's what I'm really happy about, that we're creating these wonderful connections. And Donna has been a part of the Guild for a while and has also been part of our conferences and in-person events in the past, and has always given so much to our community and helped our founders tailor those stories so that they become these exciting, enticing stories. And Donna is part of our Guild Academy online program as well, where she teaches a small course around storytelling and how to create a pitch that really resonates. And so because of that, I knew this would be an amazing opportunity today to get everybody together. And so I'm very, very happy, Kate, that we were able to bring our two communities together and get Donna on here to host this free webinar. I know, Donna, it's crazy times for all of us. So thank you so much for doing that for the community. And I had the pleasure and the chance to have you last week with a very small group of founders for the Guild Academy. And the way how you transform stories into these incredible pitches where investors go like, yes, tell me more. It's just very exciting. And so I'm very excited for today. And I hope that a lot of people get a lot out of it, and that you look at the future also with the eyes of opportunity and not just, you know, anxiety, which is understandable. But so that's what we're all about. We're trying to bring you solutions at the Guild. We're trying to bring you connections, and we love to collaborate with awesome organizations like Women 2.0. So with that, yeah, I'll hand it back over to you, Donna.
So thank you, Anne, and thank you, Kate, and thank you for being there when I called, because I was like, okay, how can we reach as many people as possible? And both of you stepped up with your amazing organizations. And of course, this is very inclusive. Of course, men are invited too, but just know that these are two very, very special organizations that are trying to do everything possible to even out the ratio. And speaking of women, I've got two little ones of myself. And so if you hear like some manic screaming from the other room, just know that we haven't been invaded by aliens. So I apologize. We're trying to keep it as quiet as possible. Great. So I'm like literally shaking from excitement here. I'm seeing so many names of people that I know from the past. And a couple weeks ago when this whole thing started, I decided that it was time to dive into the unknown and just really try to see what we could do to get into this together. I think we're all in uncharted territory. And there's been many times of my life where I've dived into the unknown. And I mean, 2008, I found myself at a crossroads just like this. And I pivoted from working with enterprise to working with startups, which I've been doing ever since. So I've been a corporate storyteller for over 16 years, focused on startups for over 11. And I know that these turning points, as scary as they are, can sometimes be an incredible turning point. So I work with everyone on investor materials. I've helped my clients raise upwards of $500 million, and sales decks, partnership decks, website content, the whole shebang. And I'm also doing remote trainings now, back to a bit more corporate. So if you know anyone working in those organizations that need to not bore everyone to death at home, we can talk. So one of the missions I've taken on during this whole thing is to try to spread optimism and hope and laughs as much as possible. And we're going to talk a lot about storytelling today. And one of the most beautiful things about storytelling is that we truly do write our own story. Nobody really knows what's going on now. So we have the power to create our narrative, to decide what materials and numbers and stats we take and what we choose to believe, what we choose to put out there. So I want to encourage you all, hit snooze on the doomers and gloomers. We all have them, they're friends, but you know, for now, just stick to the things that keep you moving forward, because it's changing every day. So for example, I mean, I was looking for things to kind of show optimism, because everybody's asking me, Donna, is there any point on working on our investment deck right now, because anybody investing? So one of the things I've been doing is I've been compiling a matchmaking list to try to match between active investors and active startups. I'm not doing that for a broker's fee or for anything. I'm just trying to do some good. And I have about a dozen or so active investors that have signed up for that. And I found this quote from TechCrunch, and it said, because with other investors departing the market, deal terms are getting better, competition is less keen, many investors have more time to do due diligence, and there's a lot of great companies being built that have great growth prospects and are going to survive the global pandemic. And I'll add to that, they're not just going to survive, they're going to thrive. So there's a lot of space right now, even if it's not fundraising right this week or next week, that there's going to be these opportunities. We might have to take a little bit of a cut on our valuations, and that's okay. You got to do what you got to do to survive right now. So just to give you a little bit of hope, these are 5 companies out of several that really thrived in the last recession. Lego, believe it or not, they expanded into Asia in the last recession, and they quadrupled their sales. Groupon was born in August 2008, and they gave a solution both to the consumer side and to the businesses side. Airbnb, who heard of the shared economy before then? This is just an Uber and all of the other ride shares and share. So that kind of was born out of it. Amazon was still focused mainly on books. They launched Kindle back then, and then everything started to take off for them. Netflix was still renting DVDs. Remember that? I'm not sure how many people do, but actually Netflix started off as like this DVD in the mail thing where you'd get a DVD, you'd watch it, you'd send it back, and you'd get your next one in line. And when they said that they were going to shift to digital entertainment, everybody kind of laughed at them. Guess who's laughing now? So invention is the mother, necessity is the mother of all invention. So how can we reinvent ourselves? How can we take what we have and make it even more needed for now? And how can we then tell our story to reflect that? Your message matters now more than ever. So this is the time to really step up your story, use the time you have, both for your investor story and for your customer story. So you're going to be able to take a lot of these tips for both sides today. Now, as we go through, please feel free to ask questions on the chat. Kate will be monitoring the chat, and I'm going to stop every now and then to take questions. So there are no silly questions or stupid questions. Please feel free to bring them in. Somebody else might be thinking the same thing. We've got over 100 people online, so you'd be doing everyone a favor. So speaking of Lego, I want to give you a bit of background on my structure and content of the way I put together investor decks. And this is true in any time, regular times or uncertain times. And I want to kind of give you the science behind that, because it is a science. So the first thing we need to do is we need to kind of chunk our messages together into 4. Why 4? Our brains are only capable of taking in so much information. And as kids, it's much easier for us to take in new things. Anybody that has young kids, it's incredible. I'm homeschooling in collaboration with my daughter's school now. And the way she's learning, she's almost 7, it just boggles my mind. Any of us who have tried to learn something new in the past, however many years, it's a little bit more challenging because our hard drives are very full. Our operating system is like Windows 19, blah, blah, blah. And, beyond that, as human beings, we pretty much know everything. It's very hard to teach us something new. So when people do try to teach us something new, it kind of hits this mental roadblock. And in order to get through, they've created a principle called the principle of chunking. So it's the formula is 5 + 2 - 2, meaning between 3 to 7 chunks of information is the optimal amount that the human adult brain can take in. 3 works too. So let me just give you an example. If I were to say, hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about fresh fruit. We'll be talking about apples, bananas, pears, peaches, mango, guava, coconut, cherries, strawberries, and one more, bananas. I don't know if I said bananas, but what did that list, do any of you remember? Bananas, coconut, one that jumps out at you. So it's nearly impossible. I don't even remember the list that I rattled off. But if I were to say, hi, today we're going to be talking about fresh fruit. We'll start off with citrus fruit, which includes lemons, grapefruit, and oranges. Then we'll be moving on to tree fruit, apples, pears, and peaches. And finally, for dessert, we'll have tropical fruit, coconut, mango, and guava. A little bit easier to remember? That's what our brains are busy doing all day, sorting information, chunking information. Something new comes in, oh, we can file it there. That's why when somebody talks to us, usually we go, oh yeah, that reminds me of the time that da-da-da-da-da, because our brains are constantly looking for that point of reference. Something new comes in, we have 2 reactions. Either that's not right, that's not what I was taught, and people start to argue, or we get this kind of freezing fear and we take flight and we just kind of shut down and don't listen anymore. So when we're giving a message, even though investors hear hundreds of these a month, we need to stick to the way their brains were created and give them that edge of how to put it together. So I wanted to show you the overall 4 chunks of an investor deck. And this actually is almost exactly the same for a sales deck as well. So we start off with the need. Now I know you're probably going to think, oh, again, the problem solution, really. There's a reason that that's been around for thousands of years. And when I say thousands of years, I mean thousands. We're talking Shakespeare, Molière, Chekhov, the Bible. All of these ancient stories are written in this way. And it's the way our brains are hardwired to take it in. So yes, it's old. Yes, I'm not teaching you anything new. I'm just giving you some structure for things that you probably already know. So the need, the challenge, the problem. And we're going to get into that later, but we need to really make sure that it resonates now more than ever. Probably the need that you had a month ago is going to shift dramatically. Then our proposed solution, what it is, your simple solution statement, the overview of your product, a demo. Again, we're going to dive into each of these. The business side of things, how are you going to make money? How are you going to get to markets? What's your differentiation from your competition? Your vision for the future, your milestones, future products, funding requirements. And then finally, I like to end with a slide I call key investment merits, otherwise known as why us, why now. And that's kind of the structure. Now people say, oh, well, it's that 10 slides. I don't care about the number of slides. With all due respect to Kawasaki and all the people saying, try to get it down. I've seen 10 slide decks that look like eye charts when you go to the eye doctor. So don't worry so much about it. We'll talk about the principle of how much goes on each slide. Each of these is a home. There could be in the need 3 slides, the solution 8 slides, the business plan 10 slides, and the vision for the future 3 slides as far as I'm concerned, as long as you cover the things you need to cover simply. Okay, I'm going to take a breather for a second. Kate, are there any questions that anyone wants to ask?
Yes, there was one question about, and this might be something you want to address now or might be addressing later, so just field it as you wish. Should we adjust our pitch deck to totally pivot for a virtual world during Corona, or just add a slide about what we are doing now during Corona or a down economy or whatever the situation might be that's most relevant, and still stay true to the core of our company?
Okay, so that's the essence of the workshop today. I hope that by the end of that, great, I have addressed it. I don't know who asked that because it's not in front of me, but please at the end, let me know if we managed to address that. Great, anybody else? Any questions? This is a good time for it. If not, I'll just go on and there'll be time later. I'm going to breathe for a second and wait, because just as a little tip for remote presenting, sometimes people need a minute. You can give them a second, breathe, and then let them ask the question. Okay, great. Moving on. So here's the thing. There's 3 things that investors are constantly listening for. And that's credibility, likability, and momentum. How are you the person to, or the team to execute this? Are you a great person that's going to be, you know, a joy to work with in good times and bad? And I have a feeling that probably now a lot of true colors are coming out. And momentum, how far have you gotten? These 3 things are critical when deciding whether you are an attractive investment. And these are something that you constantly want to make sure that you're addressing. So the first thing you want to do is obviously introduce yourself and your company. And we'll talk about the traction piece in a minute. Now, unless your team looks like that, there's really no need to put them at the beginning. However, if you have serial entrepreneurs with multiple exits that have done compelling things, or people that have 20 years of experience and a real edge, definitely start with the team. Usually for a round A deck and above, or even a pre-A, the team should be up there, because at this point they've got the credibility that will drive it forward. If you all are first-time entrepreneurs, you can put the team in a bit later. So here's the thing. How did that little yellow line get on there? I don't know. Kate, a little yellow line got drawn there. That's maybe a little.
I see that, and I'm not sure where
just know there's a little yellow line that just got added. So here's the thing. If you are around a startup, or I just worked with a startup last week that they're at seed, but they've had incredible traction. And this is a woman-led startup, and I was very proud of her. But in 6 months, they managed to hit product market fit. And they've really done extraordinarily well. And they're raising again to be able to expand, because she has a very timely product that's going to be extremely important right now in the world that we're living in. Don't wait for good news. Now, I have several quotes from investors in here. I haven't named names because these were in private forums that I was privy to, but these are all Silicon Valley venture partners. So one of them said, as investors, we look for exceptional strength in the company. Your traction is just that put at the beginning. We built it, it's working, here's how. If you have significant traction, sales, engagement, downloads, month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year growth, testimonials, partnerships, anything that shows your momentum, put up front what I call the brag slide. So this is, you don't want to wait to share this because they will be listening to you in another way, and that matters more than ever now. If you've got IP and you've filed patents, you've had patents granted, you've got testimonials from clients that absolutely adore you, anything to make them sit up and listen, definitely put up front and don't wait for. Again, if you don't yet have that kind of momentum, it's okay. We can do a current status a little bit later on. Don't lead in with that, only if it's going to serve your story strongly. The thing is, numbers will make them believers. I've seen investors that were a bit, wary about certain industries, but the minute you show them numbers of growth, then they're like, can't argue with the numbers as long as we're being true to our numbers. Kate, I think I saw some other questions pop up there.
Yep, there are a couple of one person did have one quick question. She had gotten advice from multiple early stage investors to keep the team up front for seed and pre-seed decks. So I don't know if you want to address that specific.
So different people will say different things. It's not like you're not going to introduce yourself and your team, but I wouldn't go into depth in them at the very beginning. Again, you're going to hear lots of different opinions. I can just give you mine. And don't put them up front unless there's some kind of very specific asset about them that you want to really talk about. In these times that we're presenting remotely, it can't hurt, just because that way, if they can't see everyone, they can see the names and they can understand a little bit more who they're talking to. Other questions? If you could tell me who said it so I can address the name, that would be great too.
That was Suzanne.
Thanks, Suzanne.
And don't quite have a full name on this, AJD. Can you discuss some of those brag metrics? Like what is impressive downloads or traction for people to see?
So, I mean, it's going to be very industry specific, but I think if, you're making 10K, 20K MRR or year-to-date revenue when you launched 6 months ago of, 120 and up, it's, again, enterprise sales take a lot longer. So with enterprise, you might show different metrics, engagement, stickiness levels, download levels. So it's all going to be specific for your field. So, but as long as you can show momentum and growth, that it's spiraling upwards, that's great. Any other questions?
What about, and this is Arena, what about a pre-seed startup with an MVP in development? How much you think about brag?
Front. Don't put the brag slide up front because you're early stage and they know it. We'll show where you can talk about your traction at this point. So the brag slide is more for either someone who's seed that has really achieved big things or even bootstrapped and pre-A. I mean, unless somehow you've managed to hack your growth and anything that will show them. So I'll let you be the judge. If it shows great momentum, put it up front. Okay, moving on. Here's another very, very important thing that means more now and also might have shifted a bit. Simon Sinek, if you have not watched his TED Talk on the why, I highly suggest it. He says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And there's going to be 3 things that you talk about in your deck: your why you're doing it, your what you're doing, and how you do it. And for me, it goes in that order: the why, the what, and the how. The why is going to be there at the very beginning. That kind of your reason for being, your North Star. Start with that why. And 5 years from now, what major overall problem you have solved? Not necessarily the step you're at now with it. This is your mission, your belief, your vision. What are you doing will be later when we talk about your simple solution statement. How you do it will be the demo. But it's super important to try to get to your why. Now, I want to show you a few whys. I was looking and finding ones that were inspiring in particular. And they don't necessarily talk about the core business, but they do talk about their vision. And I know Facebook, their vision shifted to give people the power to share and make the world more open and connected. So they've brought that into communities. And I think right now, more than ever, community has mattered a lot to all of us. LinkedIn to connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. Amazon, the Earth's most customer-centric company where customers can find and discover anything they might want to buy online, endeavors to offer its customers the lowest possible prices. Now, one that really surprised me was Intuit. To improve its customers' financial lives so profoundly they couldn't imagine going back to the old way. That to me is a very important one because it shows stickiness. And it shows that, you know, we want to create products that are so addictive that our customers are hooked. And I always say to my clients, when you're getting testimonials from customers that love you, if they can talk about that, there's life before your product and after your product. We can't imagine going back. That is an extremely good indication for investors as to the stickiness factor, because they want to invest in companies that are going to be around for a while. Okay, before I move on to the problem, Kate, any other questions come up so far?
Yeah, one quick question on the brag slide. Someone did ask, can you put well-known investors on the brag slide? Is that
absolutely.
something to brag about?
Absolutely. Funding is important. If you've funded, especially well-known investors, definitely put that in the brag slide. Yes.
And then the second question, yep, one more question on the team. Seems to be a hot topic. When you mentioned team, this is Galit. What if you have highly experienced team committed, but you still need to raise to hire them? So seed or A round, could you
pull? If you can mention their names, then do, and just say we have so-and-so who's already signed a letter of intent to come on with us as soon as we contingent upon our raise. Or if you have, you know, noteworthy advisory board, definitely put that on. Sometimes people that are wanting to come on don't want it announced and don't want their names used. So you just have to be careful with that. And you can say a very prominent executive from a high-level health pharma company, you know, so definitely that adds to it. If we can put a name, it gives it more clout. Anything else? Okay.
That's it for now. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Kate. And thanks everyone for the questions. Keep them coming. Okay. So let's talk about our problem. The problem that we're solving, like I said, might have changed significantly, or you might want to see how it's changed significantly. So, I mean, people are looking for different things today. People are looking for immediate. YC just put out a new request for proposals for our startups that are working directly on COVID-19 solutions, remote collaboration. So you want to show how you're solving a problem that may not be, okay, you're not curing coronavirus, but there are other needs that have cropped up, and you can definitely do that. So there's going to be two ways that you can talk about your problem. Either the stick, making them feel the pain. That's usually like cyber companies and anything that, you know, we could be attacked, we could be hurt, we could be harmed, let us protect you. Or the carrot. Hallelujah, this is so exciting. This is going to save your lives. This is going to make them better. Great collaboration tools, great creativity and productivity. So it's not necessarily saving lives, but it's definitely making our lives better. And you just need to show which is going to be the more powerful story to tell. And speaking of story, we want to tell our problem in a story if possible. Now, Mark Twain said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Now, let me just preface this in saying I'm not encouraging anyone to lie, but I do want you to tell the most attractive story possible. So let me take this founder that I worked with last week and how we used her story. So I love using the founder stories if possible, meaning your origin story, how you came up with the idea, where you saw the need, and then, you know, kind of how you jumped on board. So she had a consulting company for many years that was dealing in a certain field, and she, you know, they were making a lot of money, which adds to credibility. But at the same time, they were seeing this level of automation that needed to be done that wasn't being done. And they realized that they could actually, there was this huge demand from within her enterprise clients that could solve this problem. So that's what I'm talking about, a story. So she's telling it from her own personal perspective. It resonates, it's hard to argue with, but at the same time, they're getting it. And it doesn't have to be long. She doesn't have to tell exactly every date and when she started it. So you tell your story, but shorten it to the most powerful kernel of the story that talks about why you're doing this. So let me take a minute and talk to you about storytelling. This is my oldest daughter when she was 2. She's now almost 7. She would surround herself with stacks of books and just, it's almost like she was reading even before she could actually read. Now she's devouring chapter books voraciously, which is a real gift for right now because she's in these great little worlds. My younger one, who's almost 4, is now doing the same thing. She'll look at books, she'll go through. Our brains are hardwired for stories from the time we are born. Stories connect, they resonate, they persuade. There's a part of our brain called the insula, which when it hears a story is on the lookout for feelings of empathy, anger, recognition, sadness. Like that's the part where we start to really feel the other side. And there's evidence that shows in studies that were done at MIT that our brains, the storyteller and the story listener, when I say storyteller, it's you in this case. When the story is so engaging, our brains actually sync up. And when our brains are synced up, that's when you have a moment to persuade. So when you're telling a story that people identify with, then you have this opportunity to really persuade them that this is something real. So looking at the pain, the villains of the past decade that have really been profound. Bad economy, hello, we're facing that again. But again, this was born out of the last crisis. Targeting the wrong demographics, time to market. So that all these rising commodity prices, a lot of them are going to be really relevant for now, but we want to add onto that a lot of the things that are relevant for now. What are the pains we're dealing with now? The last 3, boredom, popularizing cultural trend, missing a great opportunity, those are the more the carrot. So missing a great opportunity. So one of the clients I worked recently with, they have an AI capability for transcribing and bringing out the most important action points and relevant data from a video call or an audio conversation. That's extremely timely right now. So again, you want to talk about the opportunity now, and that's where you really want to drive it home for the investors. Okay, I'm going to pause. This was all about the problem, all about the need, the opportunity. Questions about this? Anything, Kate? And feel free to everyone to pop your question in the chat now.
I think you're pretty good right now, unless Anne's been pretty good on there too. I think we're up to date at this point.
Okay, great. Give everyone a second if there's any questions about the problem. And we're going to do some practice later, everyone. So start thinking as you start to formulate your problem and your story, if you'd like to go and be one of our people to demonstrate. And like Anne said, we did a session with our Guild Academy and everybody got a chance to tell their story and then for me to tell it back in the way I would. So it's kind of fun. Then we move on to chunk 3, chapters 2, chunk 2, act 2, chapter 2, however you want to look at it. And that's your simple solution statement. We do X for Y by Z. What are you doing? Who are you doing it for? How are you doing it? What technology or magic are you using to make this happen? It should be able to be compiled into one simple sentence. I know that's hard. It's probably the hardest thing you're going to have to write. You can mix around the Y and the Z a little bit, but that's pretty much what the sentence should contain. And as fast as possible, I want you to get to an impressive demo. Steve Jobs could have stood around for an hour talking about the iPad, but the minute he brought it out, that was when it started to get interesting because our brains are visual. We need to see these things. So there's 2 things that I want to talk about with your demo. You want to use the demo not just to show off the product. Let's do double duty. Show how much you understand your customers' needs and how you're solving them. So here's two options. Let's say you already have paying customers that are already using your product, and there are many that love. Use the opening story of the problem to highlight their life before you. So let's talk about Company X. Company X, and if you can use their name, it's even better. Some don't want their name used, but just describe they have 1,000 employees, they're making 50 million ARR, and they were struggling because and they couldn't find anyone to solve that. And they tried this solution, they tried that solution, and nothing was working. And then what you can do is you can then broaden that to the rest of the industry and say, like them, there are another 50 million businesses in the US alone that are struggling with it. Current solutions are doing X, but they can't do Y and Z. So open it up, show some numbers, and you can use that as the story. And then circle back to them when you do the demo. And then say, okay, let's go back to Company X now. Let's see how they are using our tool. So here's how they onboarded. Here's the analysis we had to do. They were up and running within a week. Here's the insights we were gathering for them. And then they were doing this. And the results, within 6 months, they had an increase of 72% in sales, a 35% decrease in attrition, talking numbers, and then a loving testimonial. Oh my God, these guys are amazing. I can't imagine my life without them. That is the optimal user story that's spread and throughout your problem and your solution. If you're still early and you don't yet have customers, that's okay. You can give us an as if for a customer that would be your ideal customer. You could talk about, like, let's say Target just had another compromised system that they hacked the information of 100 million customers. Now, you're not directly involved with Target, but then you can say, okay, let's imagine Target were working with us. Here's what it would look like, and give us an as if story. And that's fine too, as long as it's clear that you're not saying the Target is a customer. All right. So here's the user story. If you have a real one, great. If not, you're there before their struggle, and you can use that at the beginning. Onboarding easy, implementation breezy, results wow, testimonial is a love fest. Then what you could do is you could do like 1 or 2 shorter ones just from different industries to show that you can be on a scope of different things, especially if you've been around for a while. And you want to highlight those killer features throughout your story so they get it. You're not just giving a laundry list of your features, you're showing it in action. And don't feel the need to do every single feature. Let them ask you for more. And again, testimonials, let them be your champion. That speaks volumes about you. Let them say it about you. If they say, oh, sure, could you write us one? Make sure you put in text that talks about stickiness, talks about love. And if you can always go overboard, they'll scale it back. They usually have to get approved from their legal anyway. Questions about the solution, the story, the user story, the testimonials, any of that?
We have one question, Donna, from Justin. When you have a complex problem, how do you balance understanding for your audience with too much information?
Great. Excellent question. So if you're working on something very technical, first of all, like for example, I was working with a company a few weeks ago that were doing an improvement on time to finish clinical trials. This was before Corona hit, believe it or not. And I hope right now that they're able to to really capture this, because a lot of what's happening in clinical trials takes about 12 to 15 years to get a med or a pharmaceutical to market. And so much of the holdup is around the clinical trials themselves. And what they found is that people are very reticent about taking part in these clinical trials. It feels like another job. They have no support. They're dropping out, and there's no good way to manage it. So they had 2 different kinds of investors they're speaking to. One from the pharma industry, totally knew it, didn't have to spend too much time on it. Others that were not familiar with this, we created a slide at the beginning, like a primer, a clinical trial 101. How does it work today? So they kind of understood, and we could level set. So let's say I work with a lot of DevOps tools. And I'm not a dev, I'm far from it. Half the time when I start out with them, it sounds to me like gobbledygook until I kind of peel away the layers. And then I say, okay, if I understand what it is that you're doing, anyone can. So I get it down to the basic place of here's the problem for devs. They do A, they do B, they do C, and yet they're stuck putting out all these fires, not making the best use of their time. So get it down to a simple language that anyone can get. If it's very high level, very high tech investors, don't worry about that. So have a slide for the lay people and then have a slide to kind of, go right into it. I hope that helps, Justin. I saw another few questions pop up. Kate, Ann, anyone want to take a Kate? Here you are.
Yep. Is it, this is from Mika. Is it useful or recommended to capture this user journey via video in pitch decks?
If you can make a video, that's great. You can show a few clips of it also. It's great for send out, because if you're sending it out and then they're watching it later, then it's good. But if you can get people telling the story, that's great if you can actually show it. You can show the user journey with a screen capture, a screen flow of how it looks. You can do GIFs, you can do screenshots, you can show just images of the product at work. As visual as you can make it, it's great. You could show other people doing it. Just don't make it too long. Yes. Next question. Any other questions, Kate?
Nope. For right now, I think you're good.
Okay. So we'll keep going. Now we're getting to chapter.
Sorry, we do have one question. Sorry, I missed it. This is a lot of information that's advised to include. Too much for a few slides. I've had investors miss a lot of content and also ask for shorter decks. Mm-hmm. How do you decide how much to include?
Right. So in a little while, I'm going to talk about the difference between a send out deck and a presented deck. Right now, nothing that I'm giving you is too much. It may sound like a lot, but when you go back and review, each slide has something very simple. So all we've really done so far is you start off with, your vision, then your brag slide if you have it, your team slide if it belongs up front, then you go into the problem, the user problem before the problem that you identified as a founder. That might be 1 or 2 slides, and then you go into the solution, your simple solution statement, then your demo showing the user journey. So far we've only done like maybe 6 or 7 slides. We've maybe been talking for 7-8 minutes if we were going straight through. So I know we're breaking this down, but believe me, I've written at least 1,000 of these. It's not too much. Send out, remind me, and we'll talk about later if I don't touch on that, which I think I do. I saw another question pop up. Anyone else, or can I move on?
From Arina, what would the best way to attract an investor? What would be the best way to attract an investor before the meeting? I think you're probably going to get to this, Donna. I'm
not going to actually get to that today. However, I did, right before this whole break, do a few videos and a few pieces of content on attracting investors. So I'm happy to share that with you when it comes out. If you follow my Facebook page, it should be out soon. I'm trying to prioritize what should go out now. Okay, but I want to stick to this for now. But I'm happy to answer any questions at the end if we have time. Okay, so moving on, now we're on our Act 3, Chapter 3, Chunk 3, the business. So if you didn't have a brag slide at the beginning, this would be the time to talk about your current status, where you're at. There's 3 main things that I want you to talk about out of the business. And that's differentiation, what sets you apart from your competitors. And it's super duper important. I hope I don't have to say this, but I'll say it anyway. To not say anything bad about your competitors, because you never know if they were involved in that company, if they have a relative, a friend, or someone who was. All companies are doing great stuff. We're just doing it differently, better, in addition to, and so you can use the differentiation. You can use the success of others to catapult you. And we'll talk a little bit more about the competition slide in a little while. Yes. Oh, sorry. Right now, we're actually going to talk about it. If this is what your competitive landscape looks like, please get rid of this. I see these kind of slides and I want to die. And also the Harvey balls, which are like the black, the half black, half white, the white are even worse. And I've seen slides that combine both the checks, X's, and the Harvey balls. Okay, I hate them. Investors hate them. If I have to work to look at all these different logos and look at all the different qualifications and try to understand how you stand out I'm working too hard. So there's a few options that you can use to visualize your competition. Airbnb in one of their earlier decks, they used the magic quadrant, and their X and their Y was affordable versus online transaction. Remember, these were in days where we really weren't making online transactions with our hotel reservations. So it was a significant thing back then. So you need to figure out the X and the Y that's the most powerful. So some investors are like, I hate those. And then some are, if they're not there, they don't understand why they're not there. So as long as you're making them meaningful, not just throwing up a bunch of logos, really think, what are the two major differentiation points that set you apart and put you up in the top right? One that investors really like is the marketscape. These are a little bit tricky to do. You need to kind of read up on it, practice it, but they do like the idea of the hubris of, here's where we are now, here's where we're going to be next year, here's the big players, this is what we can capture of it. So it's okay to brag as long as it's not like totally far-fetched. If you're going to say that you can compete with a Microsoft or a Google, you better have good things to back that up. So that's a good one. Another one, this is very simple. Investors say they like it. Just show logos, show, maybe different spectrums of different logos, and then talk about them each. So that's another one that they like. As long as they can see that you really understand your, the scope of your competition. Don't just know the big enterprise players that you're competing with, but also the VC backed ones. So they're all kind of there. You don't want to get to the point where they ask you, what about so-and-so? And you're like, who's so-and-so? So really understand your competitive landscape. This one is my personal favorite. The petal diagram. Steve Blank talks about this. If you go to my website afterwards, donnagriffith.com, under resources, I do a whole piece about your competitive slide. So this is if you are solving several different problems, like Slack, they cover a lot of different things. It's collaboration, it's chat, it's task, it's communications, and it's file sharing. So you're sitting kind of in the middle of competitors and completitors, as I like to say. So people that you could potentially be collaborating with. So you could put yourself in that. It could have 3 petals, 4 petals, 6 petals. It's totally up to you, just showing the different. And as you see, Asana and Hangouts sit in the middle of 2 different petals. So you can also show those that are sitting on a few different. All right, so that is about competition. And as I said, please don't diss your competition, because then VCs will be asking themselves, if they're saying that about their competitors, I wonder what they'll be saying about us. So it just doesn't reflect well on us. Okay, so questions about the competition or anything we've covered up until now. Go ahead and put it in the chat. Kate, I think I saw a couple flash up.
No, actually, there aren't any new questions. We've been doing a little bit of replying and adding, so that's
Great.
Probably what you're seeing. I think
Terrific.
We're caught up with questions. If anyone feels like they haven't gotten their question addressed, pop it up in case we lost it. Okay.
Monetization is another one you want to have up there in the business. How are you going to make money? What's your main business model? What are some other? Yes.
Sorry, we did, just as I closed that last statement, we did get one on the petal diagram. If it's okay, I'll jump in because it was on the last slide. This is from Anna. At what point does showing a petal diagram take away from effectiveness because you're taking on too much at one time instead of being laser focused?
If you're truly solving these different things just by nature of it, I don't think it's taking away from focus. If you're trying to grasp at straws and put in a bunch of, mini features, then don't. So if it's 4 core things, 5 core things that you truly have within you and you really will be able to give them a fight, go ahead and use it.
Great.
Okay.
And there, we just got one more question in too, which is a common question and a good one. Hernan, and apologies if I'm pronouncing anybody's name wrong. How do you touch on competitive landscape without giving it too much focus? Kind of that balance between don't want them to think that this is a crazy competitive landscape, but want to be honest and show that we know our stuff.
Look, they could do their homework and figure it out anyway. So the more upfront you are about knowing that you have competitors, it's fine. I would put the focus on not what they're doing, rather your true differentiation. So you should have, in addition to the X, Y, our true differentiation is we do X, we do Y, we do Z. So if you have that statement up there, the focus becomes what is it that's special about you that you're doing? And that is the essence. Then if they want to ask you more questions, they can. Okay, in the interest of time, because I'd like to hear from you guys soon, I'm going to move on. So monetization, how are you making money? How will you make money? This is a killer, a very important one. Opportunization, I know that's not a real word, but it rhymes with monetization and differentiation, so I like to use it. This is your silver bullet. This is your FOMO. This is your creating urgency. And this is what today is going to make a big difference for you. You need to show trends in the market and opportunities. Call for things. Gartner said that right now we need collaboration tools that enable us to, blah, blah, blah. Things that are happening in the market. And right now our market is changing at lightning speed. Day to day, new needs are popping up. And things that you actually touch on. So I usually like to look for 3 different types of trends. The first one will be something like a trend we see in the market, like the rise of gig economy or remote working, and it's even getting more, and bring in some quotes and bring in this. The second type of trend might be something changing in the regulations, something changing in the world, something changing in legislation. All of a sudden, the privacy acts that came out, like GDPR and the California Privacy Act, it changed a lot of things in the business. So there's an urgency, a legal urgency. Again, do we have an urgency right now with what we need that you could address? And the third one, I like to look at competitors of yours and their funding or M&A. Because one thing that investors do is they kind of look for signals in the market. So if other people are investing and putting money in, maybe they should be too. And then if you can show that competitors very similar to you got mega rounds, hey, maybe it's your turn. So again, if you have anything to do with remote work or collaboration, or as a byproduct, you could pivot and make it that. Edutech, digital health, logistics and delivery, money savings, these are all going to be very hot areas that investors will be looking at and are already looking at. And digital health, of course, we're looking for cures and we're looking for things, but these are super duper important things. If you are working on one of these, or you can shift your efforts and bring it on to one of these, this is a really good signal to put in, okay? And if you have an idea for them, this is the time to start working on them and get it up and running in lightning speed. See what you can do. You just never know what could come out of this. All right, questions about the silver bullet or the business? I think I saw a question just pop up. Okay, so I'm going to move on. So if you didn't put the team at the beginning, this is a good place to put it. And don't just put the team pictures up, just put a few bullets about the assets that they bring to the table. Why are they the ones to get this done? Future directions, this towards the end, get them even more excited than they already are. What are some additional markets? Now, again, looking at the laser focus, this is coming down the pipeline. This is not what we're working on now, but this is starting to connect into your bigger vision, your North Star. Additional markets you'll be able to serve, additional features that you'll be able to release, additional products that will make this even more wow, and then link it into the vision. Because if we can attach numbers to this and say, next year, once we've completed this, we'll be able to start doing that. Wow, it's an even bigger earning opportunity for them because they are looking for the 10x return. And then the ask slide, I want you to be very specific. Don't put a range. We're looking for between 1.2 million and 3.6 million. Think of a number and why you need that number, and always ask for more than you think you're going to need, because look at us now. Did anybody expect this was going to happen? And I had some clients that were very fortunate to close their rounds in January, February, and get what they needed so that right now they can work on building their messaging and their customer base and everything. So always ask for more than you need. Seeking $10 million for product development and enhancement, team expansion, sales and marketing, IP activity, those are usual allocations. So put the allocation. You don't have to put the exact percentage. You don't have to put office, the big things that you're going to be using it for. And then have a round objective. This will take us to 18 months or 24 months, and KPIs, XMRR, will be in 3 different geos, 4 products released. What will be the main KPIs? Because when they are writing a check now, they are already thinking about the next round. They're on the hook for it. So they want to know that these are achievable KPIs. So always look forward and work backwards. So will you have pilots, customers, users, geos, markets? Where will you be at the end of this runway? So like I said, one of the investors said, if they don't invest in the next round, that's a very bad signal for other investors. They are gonna have to invest in the next round. And if they don't, others are gonna be saying, well, why not? It could just be they only invest in early stage and then they open up their Rolodex for you, that you really need to have those investors on board and supporting you. Otherwise, it's gonna impede your efforts. Okay, a few more questions, and then I want to do a little practice round before I wrap up with the last few tips.
Yeah, there was one question on a competitor. If a competitor is losing money right now, would that be a trend that could point to my solution? And then my solution would be a complementary area that is growing.
Well, it would depend, I guess, why they're losing money. Is everybody losing money? If everybody's losing money, you might be losing money too. So that may not be the best thing to highlight. If you're gaining money because they're losing money and people are coming to you because you have that extra something, sure. Again, we don't want to be like, haha, they're losing money and we're not. We want to keep it like, hey, they've been reporting losses due to the fact that a lot of their customers are migrating over to our platform because So a lot of like the remote presentation are trying to fight back with Zoom, offer free subscriptions, offer all these added value things. So that's one example. Okay, other questions?
Great. There's one question in here, just for everybody popping in questions. It's a little hard to line up real-time chats with the point that's being made. So there are a couple in here that I'm not quite sure what they're addressing. Patrina, I'm not sure if you want to clarify what you were addressing in Donna's. She could possibly help you. I think at that point then we are caught up.
Great.
On questions.
Okay, let's have some fun now. Oh wait, I think I just saw another question pop up.
Yeah, so Patrina's okay. So Patrina was asking, so when you were talking about asking for more money than you need, she then asked, can't that be held against you? Too much for where you are.
Okay.
Stop taking.
Don't want to ask for $10 million more than you need, but if you think you need $1.5 million, ask for 2. Okay. If you think you need 2, ask for 2.5 or 3, because they don't want in normal days. They don't want to see you out in 6 months fundraising again. They want to see you in 6 months raising your company, and only in a year you're out fundraising again. So it makes sense to have that cushion, to have that contingency, to have it. But again, don't ask for like ridiculous amounts. I saw another question? Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, there's still a hanging question just about sort of Corona time versus non-Corona time, or down economy versus not, regular economy, sort of if there are changes.
Yes, many. So we're kind of going with the trend as we can. The biggest advice I can give you is to try to make your message relevant as possible. And if you're completely irrelevant, I mean, I've known several people that unfortunately have had to put their startup on pause, that was a lot of live activity things or in-person things or things in amusement parks. Unfortunately, it's going to be very hard to raise that now. You might want to do some consulting work in the meantime, like one of the companies I know is doing. I wish I had a better answer than that. Okay, Any other questions, or can we do some practice? And right now, I want to know who would like to go first. And it's going to be very simple. Do like a little elevator pitch for your need and solution mainly, and maybe tell us something little about the business. In about a minute, I'm not going to stop you, but then I will give you a pitch back of what you gave. And let's do maybe about 5 of these. Go on, wrap up, and then if we have some time at the end, I'll do some more. Anybody raring to get in there?
I don't mind.
All right, Anita. Are you video worthy? Can you put on your?
No, right
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay,
Yeah.
So great. So where are you calling in from?
San Jose. I've had lunch with you before.
You've had lunch with me before?
Yes, time banking, where we you volunteer your time an hour and you get an hour back.
How much fun. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Well, it's good to see you again. I wish we could have lunch again right now. Yeah. All right. So I want you to tell us about, what's your startup called?
Seva Exchange. Seva means
Exchange.
volunteer in Sanskrit. And you like purple. It's a purple business card. It's all purple logo.
Yeah, you noticed that I like purple. How about that?
Me
okay.
Too.
So let's try the problem solution using the story, and then the simple solution statement, maybe just a little bit about what your business is, and then I will give you some feedback, okay?
Should I pivot now? Because it was essentially for nonprofits to help them get volunteers, because volunteer retention, is they spend millions of dollars spending just as much money as a normal company on recruitment and volunteering, only to lose them after a day or two.
Okay. Can what you're doing now help with recruiting volunteers, not just keeping them?
So I pivoted in my business right now by focusing on the communities, because I'm trying to get help for those individuals, the elderly, getting them, groceries and having the needs met. So
pitch that. Let's hear your story.
Okay. Communities and individuals now more than ever need the help. Without our app, it's very difficult for them to express what is.
There is no your app. Wait, whoa. There's no app. Talk to us about the situation. What's happening? A specific community, specific people, their story.
Okay. A senior might be, living alone. I mean, there's other things that they would love to, be able to go out there and give volunteer help. But right now they have needs. So our app is not just about volunteering, but getting the needs that you need at the moment. So they can ask whatever they are willing, they can save their volunteer credits and use them right now at a need where they need, to get groceries, someone to go pick up a pharmacy thing.
Okay.
So that's what I'm helping with right now. But communities also have blood drives, and they need people out there donating blood. Other things is people are making masks, like individuals. So there's a lot of things that we can do right now. We don't have to get together at an event to volunteer, but people are doing things individually to contribute to society, to help their own community.
Okay, here's your story. Here's how I would tell your story.
Okay.
I'd have a picture of a woman, in her early 80s, and say something like, this is Rose. Rose, for the past 10 years, has been volunteering, doing things in her neighborhood, helping gather clothes for people in need. Rose, since Corona, has been isolated from her kids, and she is scared to go out to the grocery stores and do shopping for herself. And she really could use a hand. And like Rose, there are so many populations that up until now were not populations in need, but they need that extra helping hand. And on the other hand, we have people with outpouring of support, people wanting to come together, wanting to give things now and don't quite know how. And this is where Seva brings them together, mobilizing communities for each other, because the needs are more acute now. And it's time to come together in an orderly fashion. It doesn't have to be live. And here's how it works. 1, 2, 3, then go through the steps, talk about success stories you've had. There you go, but make it more personal.
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.
Donna, we've got Crystal who's volunteered to go next.
Crystal, all right. Can you unmute yourself, Crystal?
I am. I'm not photo ready.
Don't worry. I love the hat.
Okay, how would you like me to start?
Just what's your startup and what's it doing?
Great. I am with Citefull, Citefull. We're aiming to fix fake news, not inconvenient news, with a digital scalable product. So we have a verified news source.
Wait, stop. And just, I'm going to stop you for a second. And this is a note to you and to Anita and to anyone else. When you're talking about the problem, your solution does not exist.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so talk to us about the problem as it is now. Give it a go with news, fake news, and today.
Right. So right now we're with the crisis of trust that we have in a lot of our institutions, whether they be media or government or even education. We're having a problem agreeing on basic facts, and it's really hurting people, whether it be from the Australian wildfires that killed more than 1 billion animals to the coronavirus that is really killing not only individuals and people that are near and dear to us, but also our medical professionals and threatening our future. So we're interested in getting rid of disinformation so that people can make good decisions.
Great. Okay, so here's, I love the way you did it. I enhanced it a little bit more. There's two ways that are going on in my brain right now. One could be suddenly everyone is an expert. Everyone is a statistician, everyone's a doctor, everyone's a medical professional. And it's amazing to see your feed. You've got all of this data that everyone is bringing out now. The thing is, only maybe about 1.5% of it is actually validated and true. Even the true experts today are very uncertain because they have not had time to really work through data. New numbers are emerging all the time. This is creating a second pandemic, and that's the pandemic of fear.
Yes.
People are spreading, we'll call it invalidated news, not just fake.
Infodemic.
And there you go. So, and this is causing unneeded fear and anxiety. And studies are showing that anxiety levels that were already high are at an all-time high. At this time more than ever, it's important to have trustworthy news only put out. Facebook has already invested $65 million in fighting fake news. What we're doing will make sure that, and then you go into what it is that you're doing.
Yay. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Okay, who's next?
Fantastic. We have Miri.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Donna.
Can you unmute yourself?
Hi, everyone.
And did I say your name right?
Yep.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. My name is Miri Berger. I'm the CEO of 6 Degrees. I'm calling from Israel, actually.
Hi.
To introduce what we do, we are dealing with the fact that simple tasks today, such as using a phone or even working from home, are out of reach for people who've lost their fine motor skills. So this is people who can't use their hands because of injury, amputation, disease, or tremor. There are 300 million of these people around the world. We actually want to get them back into employment, back to using their smart devices. To solve this, 6 Degrees has created a wearable device with a learning algorithm inside called MyMove. And what we do is we translate motion in space into control over any device. So on a phone, it would act like your finger on a touch screen. If you connect via Bluetooth to your computer, it'll act as a mouse and allow you to play games, illustrate, go back to work, and answer messages faster. And that's what we do. And what we're struggling with is that we've also created another value proposition. And so the duality, which I'm happy to start saying, but which the duality of it kind of confuses a story. So our second product value proposition is called My Way, and it addresses people who are undergoing physical therapy rehabilitation, and they currently lack measurable tools to monitor their progress. So we're using the same device, the back-end system of the device, to give feedback to that end user, to your physical therapist, to see how you've improved along time.
And you already have paying customers for that one?
Yeah, so to give you an idea, in the US, it's around 11.7 million people in the US go through rehabilitation every single year. in the 5,262 community hospitals. And they lack that feedback to say how they're improving, how their range, speed, angle has improved a long time. So they're actually putting on our device and through using games and going back to work on anything that they normally would do all day.
Is that what's paying the bills more for you right now? Is that what's being used more?
No, so we're in beta stage with both, and planning to go out to the market with the assisted device this year, and then trying to actually kind of capture the value for the backend system as part of the story.
Okay, so here's my gut of how I would tell the story, because you got some great things. My gut is that right now, the first one is much more relevant to people because there's so many people that are sitting at home and disconnected, even more than ever. And I would start off with a story saying, so we're all, complaining how hard it is to be at home, and we're stuck at home, and we can't go out, and we can't do our day-to-day things. But can you imagine if you were stuck at home and you didn't have the use of one of your vital extremities, your hands, your legs, and you were limited to communicating with the world through your voice, and you couldn't even pick up your smartphone and dial an app in order to do that? How much scarier and more vulnerable would you be during this time period? Well, there are over 87 million, just making up numbers, people that are in rehab, that are amputees, that have lost the use, and many of them are over the age of 65 or 70. And during these times, it's more urgent than ever that we find a way to connect them with the world. And then say what you do. And then as a secondary market, say we also have created another solution for, but that can go later on. Right now, stick with what's the most urgent.
Okay.
Okay, great. I think we can do another one or two and then wrap. I have a few more things I want to tell you guys. Any other volunteers, Kate?
Hi.
Yep, we have T. Oops,
Yes.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just unmuted and I just changed my name, so it's Theola. Hi.
Theola. Hi, Theola. Where are you calling in from?
From DC.
Hi, my place of birth.
Awesome. Awesome. Great.
So, talk to us.
I have a college education and I had a long career as a journalist. And with that experience, when I wanted to change careers, I was completely lost. I couldn't find any smart resources that could help me figure out what skills I had and what I could do with them. And so there's so much technology when it comes to applying for a job, so many websites, but there's nothing when it comes to discovering a new career, really figuring out what it is that you want to do. And this is especially timely now because of the pandemic, with unemployment rising and new jobs really falling, that people are really turning inward to figure out what it is that they can do and how they may need to make a transition. And so I'm building a platform called J-Skills that is going to help people figure out the skills that they have, really analyze their experience, and then see how those skills can show up and then transfer to new careers.
Amazing. That's so timely. So I love this story. I would probably swap the order a little bit and start with the more urgent and say, it's estimated now that unemployment rates in the US could soar as high as 32% post-pandemic. It's probably scarier for a lot of people than the coronavirus itself. As we stood, automation was taking over from a lot of positions, and there were a lot of careers that were going to be completely reshuffled. But at the same time, we're also seeing an age of optimism because there are new opportunities that we didn't even think of opening up. But like me, who I was a journalist and I needed to make a career change, many people don't realize the skills and the talents they already had could translate to something new that could give them new hope, new employment, and we're missing the resources to tap into them. And that's why we've created J-Skills. Okay.
Perfect. Got it. Thank you. This was literally, I just made this up because of the pandemic. I've actually
See,
never.
look at the creativity happening out there, people. This is amazing. This is awesome. I love it. Thank you, Theola.
Thank
How about
you.
one more and then I'll wrap things
Yep.
up?
Yes, hello.
Last one on deck is Keith.
Hi, so good to see you.
Hey, Donna. I just wrote my question, so I'd be very happy. Thank you. Very interesting as always. In short, for the people around, I'm developing New Beginning, which is New Beginning is developing digital health and AI-powered clinics. So right now, our solution is extremely relevant because we are working with experts in the field of medical, doctors from Europe, from America, former senior executive from the Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. A solution, we work like this together with Donna, has the diagnostic solution with the lab, the remote monitoring for the patients, the healthcare worker trainings, because doctors are saturated and we see that today everywhere in the world. We have an integration with pharmaceutical for on-site medical, very relevant. And a go-to-market is today the developing countries, where there's actually no infrastructure that can deal with the coronavirus. No infrastructure. I had a call before, we just spoke today with an organization, with the World Health Organization representative and the Red Cross Worldwide, a delegation from Africa, from South America, Mexico, from Asia. And the problem is in those countries, the most vulnerable population has no access, and their choices, we are all complaining, we are at home, some careers will disappear. Their choice is, if they don't go to work, they don't eat. So if they don't go in places where they can potentially be contaminated, they're going to starve. And if those governments are blocking those people to stay home to reduce the epidemics like we see in the developed countries, so it's either they may die for contagious, either they may die for starvation.
And how's your solution going to help them at the same time?
So our solution is, first of all, we are working with technologies already in places in some of the top 10 best hospitals in the world, currently working in reducing the interaction between healthcare facilities and affected patients. So those technologies already exist. We're already in discussion with them in order to put them in our clinics. We have a highly experienced team. The question is two things. First, you mentioned about the round and increasing the amount of money. And this past years, because we have it ready on template, we need to raise enough money to make that happen. And we realize that healthcare is very costly, but it's very necessary to have an integrated solution. Mm-hmm. Right now, if I pitch to my investors, okay, we're starting with developing countries where everybody's thinking of themselves, shrinking to, hey, how that will affect my life in America or Europe. What do I say?
Okay, so here's the thing. So I just, in the interest of time, as much as you're devoted to working with the emerging markets, the emerging countries, and I think that it's extremely important, you need to think of your company and the health of your company right now. And if you have tools and AI and better ways of treating remotely, I think you have an immediate potential for capturing a much bigger market, which will feed you and give you money to then move on to the things that I know where your heart is. And you can mention that as a sign. So I would start off saying, suddenly we're all limited to home. Things that are not Corona related are asked to be, don't come into your clinics, don't come into the emergency rooms. Our medical staff are just, they can't keep up with the load that is. But at the same time, we have health situations that come up that do need diagnosing. There are telemedicine things today, which are basically like a glorified video chat. It's missing this, it's missing that, it's missing the other. We have the opportunity with the infrastructure that we created for emerging countries to now heal the world with Corona and post-Corona. And here's how it would work. And then later say, our initial goal, our vision is to make medicine accessible to all countries, especially those that can't currently shelter at home. Right now, we see a massive opportunity to reach out to people everywhere. That's what I would do. And unfortunately, right now, we can't always think of that we have to keep
No,
our
I very much like your idea, because right now our go-to-market was to start with developing countries and then maybe to move on. But thank you so much, Jenna.
Good luck. Good luck.
And
Okay.
I also, if you see any match opportunity, as I said to you, I'd be very happy.
I promise I will. I promise I will do my best. Okay, so just to kind of wrap up, a few last things that I want to tell you. Your slides need to look great. You would be surprised how many investors insist upon that. There's all kinds of great tools out there. Canva, SlideBeam, SlideBody, Maze, Haiku Deck that you can use to free or very inexpensively make your slides look better. Don't data dump. We talked about what should be on slides. One big idea per slide. I'd rather have a few more slides with less on them than so many slides, because you're competing with your own words. You just have too much up there. People are going to be reading and not listening to you. Our brain can't do both at once. And just to piggyback on that, and I'm sorry, it's the one by Good Dear Grandma Could Understand. It came up for me many, many years ago, but it's also grandpa, and it's also mom, and it's also dad, and it's also anything. You need to be able to explain it in a way that speaks to anyone, an 8-year-old, that they can understand what it is that you're saying. Because as Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Like a slide like this, you want to be able to explain simply that all that's saying is we're doing much more in much less space, because it's all about our audience. Know your audience's questions, answer them ahead. Basically, by going according to the flow that I gave you, you should be doing that. But if you go to, on my website, also under resources, I have a list of the 100 questions that investors ask that you should be able to answer. Review the questions that are relevant to you, review your answers, be able to answer questions. So that's the link to it, and I'm going to make sure that these slides are sent out. So Kate and Ann will make sure that everybody gets them. Remote presentation. Trust is emotional. You need more engagement. Since your body isn't there, your voice becomes essential. Take the time now to record your voice. Are you engaged by your voice, or is it a little bit dull? And here's a little exercise you can do. You can kind of try to present like a home shopping network host. Go totally over the top. Record that. Then record yourself regular, and then record yourself, you know, somewhere in between the two, and see where your voice is becoming more engaging. Use your expression, look at the camera, be there, use your gestures. It's a bit more than you would in person, but this is the time to up your game. So this is the exercise: the outrageous voice, your usual voice, your modulated voice, and listen. Couple last thoughts, and then we're going to wrap up. So I always ask this at my in-person workshop. So who here ever feels fear before a big presentation or a big pitch? Probably all of us. And then I ask people where they feel that. Usually the answer is either butterflies in their stomach, fast heart rate, shortness of breath, dry mouth. I call this the pipe of terror. Anything from like your mouth down to your belly, where we totally feel fear. And then I ask, okay, well, think of the last time you were excited about something. A big trip, a big event, my workshop today. I'm just kidding. Where in your body did you feel the excitement? And most of the time the answers are the same. Butterflies in my stomach, heart beating fast, shortness of breath, dry mouth. The pipe of terror becomes the pipe of excitement. Really? Yes. Because those butterflies are all a matter of how we think about them. So if instead of saying, okay, wait, I've got butterflies in my stomach, what's going on? Oh, I'm about to give a presentation to a ton of people. Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. And those butterflies are sneaky. They hear nervous and they turn black and grow little fangs and start flying up and choking you, and you can't breathe, and everything's falling apart. As opposed to, okay, what's going on? I'm feeling butterflies in my stomach. Oh, I'm about to give a big presentation in front of a lot of people. Woohoo! This is so exciting. And then those sneaky little butterflies, they pull out their Burning Man clothes, start putting on some Tiesto music, popping shots of Van Gogh, and having a party. And that is what we need. So instead of pushing away those butterflies, just rebrand them and call them excitement. And then fear becomes about facing everything and recovering. And that's very apropos of our times right now, because we're facing a lot of uncertainty. But if you can think of yourself the last time you faced uncertainty and that you got through it and keep that image in mind, you're going to be a lot healthier through this time. And one last point for the day, I want you to come in at your best. Everybody's under a lot of anxiety. Everybody is in uncertainty. That's not what you want to put front in a meeting. If you finally have a meeting, they say, how you're doing? You say, well, yeah, things are tough. Numbers are down. This, really? Are they going to want to invest? Yeah, we are grabbing this opportunity by the horns. We've got ideas. We're putting things forward. We've given discounts to our clients, but we're really involved in what they're doing. Show yourself at your finest right now, because you don't get a second chance for a first impression. So I want to end with a thought that inspired me. Steve Jobs said, I'm convinced that about half of what separates the successful entrepreneurs from the non-successful ones is pure perseverance. So I want to wish us all a lot of breathing perseverance. Looking forward, we heard some great examples of a few companies that are pivoting what they're already doing or the ideas that are coming up. And I know that you can do this, and I hope we meet on the other side. I want to thank once again Women 2.0 and Guild, Anne and Kate, for sponsoring this and making this possible and getting the word out. This is my contact information, and I'm offering anyone that was on this webinar today 25% off of any of my services, pitch decks, sales decks, website. So please let me know if I can be helpful to you. And I want to wish you all a lot of fortitude, a lot of good health, and a lot of success. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
And we'll get the